learners, I welcome you all to the last segment for the lecture 35. So in this segment we look at the merits of this particular case. We've been discussing gold reserve versus Venezuela, and we first discussed the factual matrix of the case, then we discussed about the tribunal's decision with regard to the question of fact, and here we will discuss about what was the tribunal's decision with regard to certain violations that the claimant had made. Certain violations of the bilateral investment treaty provisions, and what were the arguments of the parties and how did the tribunal decide. We'll discuss all of these very briefly because again we have a time constraint as well, right? So there were the claimants had made claims with regard to a violation of FET clause, violation of full protection and security clause. Then they also invoked MFN clause to borrow a non-impairment provision from other treaties that Venezuela had signed, and then there was a question with regard to expropriation. So with regard to FET clause, fair and equitable treatment clause, like any other tribunal, even Gold Reserve Tribunal was confronted with the question of what is the scope of FET clause. Then we see that Gold Reserve Tribunal had looked at many decided cases, and then it sort of adopted a broader interpretation of the FET clause, violation of legitimate expectation, due process, transparency, lack of predictable and stable environment. All of these were considered to be the tenets of FET clause under Canada Venezuela BIT. So broad interpretation regarding the scope was first initially decided. Then the tribunal applied this to the facts of the case. So particularly looked at few measures of Venezuela. One is with regard to Initiation Act, where we've seen that Ministry of Environment refused to sign Initiation Act, and that was a mandatory requirement for the construction permit to be valid, specifically under condition number 9. Right. So then it looked at the issue with regard to revocation order, which revoked the construction permit. Then it looked with regard to the denial of extension and termination of Brissa's concession. It also looked at the issue of termination of Unicornio concession. So these four measures were actually looked at by the tribunal by applying the broader scope of FET clause that it already ascertained. The scope of FET clause is already ascertained by the tribunal. With regard to Initiation Act, what we see here is all the documents that the claimant had submitted until that point were actually accepted and approved. Even when it submitted VESA, that the environmental impact and social impact assessment study, even that was approved without any objection with regard to environmental harm. All of a sudden, the Ministry of Environment refused to sign the Initiation Act. In fact, initially it made some demands with regard to change in main access road and all of that, and that was also complied by the claimant. But finally, it referred to environmental harm. A vague reference to environmental harm was mentioned. So this, in tribunal's opinion, with the fact that all of the previous reports were accepted and signed, was something that amounted to a lack of lack of transparency, good faith, consistency, right? So that is how the tribunal said, since all of these were lacking, that amounted to violation of article, the FET clause of Canada Venezuela BIT. Then with regard to the question of revocation order, here also if we look at revocation order that had denied the construction permit, one of the things that was mentioned in the revocation order was a state of emergency prevailed in terms of Imataka forest, and because of that they are revoking back the construction permit that was earlier granted. Right, so this is what in fact the Ministry of Environment had stated, the Venezuela had stated that the Ministry of Environment had granted the construction permit, but after some point of time they realized there were a lot of environmental harm. That is why they revoked it. They realized the error and they had revoked it. This is what was claimed by Venezuela in this particular arbitration. What we see here is, even when the construction permit was granted, the emergency decree was in force. The state of emergency existed there also. So the reason that is given in the revocation order actually is not justified, because when the construction permit was granted at that point of time also that was prevalent. So the tribunal recognized the inconsistency in the approach of Venezuelan authorities, and it stated that there was an opportunity of being heard was not given to the claimant, and that violated the FET clause. That is how it decided with regard to the second measure, that the revocation order. Then the third measure, denial of extension request and the termination of Brissa's concession. So here we had already discussed in the context of the question of fact, and what we see here is they had applied for, the claimant had applied for extension, but there was no reply from the side of Venezuela. And then we could also see that there was delay with regard to getting the permits from the Ministry of Environment. If we calculate the delay with regard to the that was there on the part of the Ministry of Environment, we could probably invoke the Article 61 of mining law, the force majeure clause, which sort of sets off or mitigates the delay process, the delay and all of that. I mean, we discussed this particular point in the context of Unicernio concession in the last segment. How that cannot be used because a claimant had not submitted, made the application within the given timeline in terms of Unicernio concession. But the claimant had made the application to the Ministry of Environment within the given timeline in the context of Brissa's concession. So, in the context of Brissa's concession, Article 61 could be sort of invoked. So, if that is invoked, then there is no violation on the part of the, there is no delay, or the delay could be mitigated, condoned on the part of Brissa's concession from the claimant side. So, that can be done, right. So, in that case, how could they deny the extension request and how could they terminate it? So, the tribunal again here looked at the fact that these are the things that are going to be again applicable. It stated that it referred to Metalclat's decision and stated that there was no transparency with regard to Venezuela's action, and we had already discussed Metalclat case. While we were talking about Metalclat case, we know how Metalclat tribunal stated this violation of Article 102, transparency provision of NAFTA, and it stated that that can also be linked to a violation of Article 1105. Then there was a review by British Columbia Court wherein certain part of Metalclat award were actually set aside, and that is with regard to an overly expansive interpretation and all of that. So, that's on a different side. So, we know about it, what had happened to Metalclat decision. But here in this case, Gold Reserve Tribunal referred to Metalclat's decision, especially with regard to the emphasis on transparency, and then it stated that that amounts to violation of an equitable clause. Although technically, whatever the defect that Metalclat Tribunal suffered from, which led to a portion of the award being set aside, is not there in Gold Reserve's award, because it's been violation of due process that had already been established. But I seriously sort of question whether giving reference to Metalclat's transparency would be a better approach for the arbitral tribunal. Again, that's just my personal opinion, but still it only referred to this particular aspect. The significance of the transparency, or how a host state has to be transparent. To that extent, Gold Reserve Tribunal had referred to Metalclat award. So, that is with regard to the third measure, that is denial of extension request and termination of Brissa's concession. Then even with regard to Unicernio concession, even though the concessions were granted at much later time. I mean, first Brissa's concession was granted, then after a much later time Unicernio concession was granted. The termination of the concession sort of happened within a period of 1 year itself. It was very close. So, the tribunal stated that how there was lack of due process for terminating Brissa's concession, the same is also there in the case of Unicernio concession. So, this lack of due process is something that amounts to violation of FET clause. That's how the provision with the claim with regard to FET was decided. So, in case of what we see here is the Gold Reserve Tribunal stated that Venezuela has violated the fair and equitable treatment clause of Canada-Venezuela BIT. Moving on, if we look at the other claims that were made by the claimant, especially with regard to full protection and security. So their claimant stated that there's been a violation of full protection and security because when there was a change in the policy of Venezuela, it did not sufficiently guide the investor with regard to that. And but what the tribunal stated here was, tribunal relied on the Saluka's decision, and it stated that the full protection security clause is only limited to the physical integrity of the investment. And in this case, on the facts of the case, we can clearly see there was no physical damage to the concession and all of that. So there is no breach of full protection and security clause. Then the claimant also invoked an MFN clause of Canada Venezuela BIT in order to borrow favorable provisions from other BIT signed by Venezuela, for instance with Paraguay and all of that. So then the provision that the claimant wanted to borrow through MFN clause was non-impairment provision. Non-impairment provision generally says the host state cannot take discriminatory or unreasonable measures. So with regard to this contention also, the tribunal stated that already we had discussed all of these claims in the context of FET and we found a violation of FET. So therefore the tribunal did not rule or decide with regard to the borrowed provisions from other treaty through MFN clause. Then the claimant also stated that the termination of Brissa's concession or revocation of phase 1 construction permit, all of these amounted to expropriation as well. So that is when the tribunal actually accepted Venezuela's contention that they were actually legitimate regulatory measures. So the tribunal here did not find a violation of expropriation provision. It rather stated that Venezuela's actions were legitimate regulatory measures, and tribunal referred to past decided cases for arriving at this conclusion. So if we see of all the claims that the claimant had made, there was no decision with regard to MFN. The tribunal refused to decide, and we could see that the tribunal found no violation of FPS clause, tribunal found no violation of expropriation clause, but the tribunal found a violation of fair and equitable treatment clause. So this is how this gold reserve versus Venezuela case was decided. So I conclude lecture number 35 with this. In the next lecture, we will be looking at one other case, Allard versus Barbados. I'll give you a little bit of information about Allard versus Barbados. It's a very interesting case because Allard, he's an individual. Allard has filed a case saying that the government has failed to protect the environment. So that is where Allard versus Barbados is an interesting case. So we'll discuss that in the next lecture. Thank you.